Em, can you believe we started Interview Boss in 2021?
Not really. It's insane. That's a lot of episodes and a lot of hours of talking.
Oh my gosh, it is. And if you're scrolling through all of our episodes, you might scroll straight past something that you really, really needed.
Yes, we're always getting messages from people asking us to do an episode on something, and I'm like, we already have.
So we've put together playlists to help you find the episodes that are exactly what you need, suited to your situation.
They're all categorized. If you're applying for jobs, we have episodes about resumes, cover letters, job ads. If you've been offered your dream job, we have episodes on resigning, exit interviews, and how to impress at your new company.
And we even have a very special playlist that's very popular for if you have an interview coming up immediately and you need just our most recommended hard-hitting episodes between now and then.
For all our last-minute listeners. It's all there for you. You can browse by category and check out all the playlists at interviewboss.com.au/podcast. What if the snow just ain't fallen and they're like, you know what? Ski season is cut short and there's nothing we can do. You're out of here. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Interview Boss. My name's Emma. I'm a radio journalist who's teamed up with my sister Sarah to give you advice, inspiration, and support when you're looking for that new job. Sarah is a HR and recruitment top doggy, and together we're here to give you all the tips, tricks, and behind-the-scenes knowledge to help you excel in your career.
Oh, mixing it up again. I like the My Sister Sarah. My Sister Sarah. That's very catchy, isn't it?
It is, instead of my sister Sarah.
Yeah. Who are we giving a Shoot Your Shot shout out to, Em? And welcome back. Oh my God. I've mixed everything up now. You've got me all off track.
I'm kind of sick of you saying the same thing every time. So if you could work on that, that'd be good.
This is how Emma delivers feedback, everyone. Live on the air.
Now, I'm not sure if this is how you pronounce your name or if this is a username, but we think this is the pronunciation. So shout out to Xuanmad, who bought us 5 coffees and said, in caps locks, I got the job. I can't believe I'm finally writing these words.
Okay, just pause for a sec. Prepare to shed a tear if you're listening to this, everyone.
Yeah, Sarah texted me and said, oh my God, go and read this, Shoot Your Shot. I'm crying. And I had already read it that morning and was like, so it was just very touching. I can't believe I'm finally writing these words. Coming out of uni, I accepted the first okay job offer I got because I was terrified of ending up with nothing. I can relate. When you're finishing uni, you just want to take anything you can.
I think it's the hardest job you'll ever get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First week in, and I knew this wasn't it, but I decided to hold on and gain the experience. I found your podcast and started listening to it to prepare for the application and interview process. 1 year in, I was actually depressed. I'd break down crying in the bathroom multiple times a month, but I was feeling so worthless that even applying for jobs seemed pointless. Who would want to hire someone like me? This tore my heart apart. Even though I was praised for my job, I felt like an absolute fraud. The only thing that kept me hoping was you two girls. Hearing your voices would soothe me and helped me believe that there was a better job out there for me and that I would get it. At the start of 2024, I gave myself the goal of switching jobs before the end of the year. I'd made a few changes to my lifestyle, which helped with the depression, and I felt ready to tackle that next step. I remade my resume using your advice. I networked using your advice. I prepared for interviews using your advice. I was going to make you proud. 2 weeks ago, the day of the third and final interview, I walked to their office feeling like a badass, listening to your breathing exercises, and I crushed it. Well, at the time, I didn't feel like it, but on the way out, the manager started talking about how great the food was at the office and how I'd appreciate all the lunch options available, and that's when I knew I had nailed it. The wait was a bit long, too long in my opinion, but I just got the call and I have the job. You're actually the 4th people I'm telling after my boyfriend, mum, and best friend. Now I have to go back to the podcast and listen to the resignation episodes. Thanks to you for being the voice of hope in times of darkness, for helping me, for providing some Australian comfort in the depths of French winter, and for being absolutely amazing. It's my turn to keep you caffeinated so you can keep the content coming, so I can keep building my career. It's the circle of jobs.
And I reckon you meant to do that. It's the circle of love jobs.
Yeah, probably.
Sorry for that,
Thanks
everyone.
again.
Yeah.
Your number one French fan. Oh my God, where to begin?
I have tears again. I just, they wanted us to be proud. Oh my God. I'm so proud. This is incredible.
Proud is an understatement.
Imagine setting a goal for a whole year to be like, the only thing I want to do, I want to change jobs. I'm going to have another job by the end of the year. First of all, props to you for making an achievable goal, because that's plenty of time, which is awesome. You're not setting yourself up for failure there. And then dealing with the lifestyle changes to help with the depression first, so important, because
you pulled yourself out of that dark place alone.
How are you ever going to start being confident in yourself and applying for jobs and things, even if your job's contributing to it? It's going to be so hard to do that if you don't start addressing some of the mental health challenges first. So if you're dealing with that, I would say start there if you can, and then work on the rest of it.
I think this is so relatable because we hear constantly from people how disheartened they get when the job search isn't going well, how it can crush their confidence, and it sounds exactly like what they were dealing with. And I think a lot of people will relate. This is the depths that you can reach sometimes when, your job isn't right and it can feel exhausting. And this was you, but you pulled yourself out of there. This also tells me they're a long-time listener because they said that they found us to prepare for the bad job that they just took because they needed something. And then all this time later, after a year, they set a goal. So that we've been with them the whole time.
I know. Incredible. And the fact that, keep you caffeinated so you can keep the content coming. Imagine how many times you've had to listen to that. Our little...
It's rent-free in her brain.
Repeating our things back to us. This is so incredible. Keeping you company, listening to the both of us. Honestly, I could cry with this. If I ever feel it's too hard, I can't continue to manage the podcast stuff and I don't want to do this, honestly, I'll just need to post that on my wall.
Thank you so much.
If we changed one person's life like that ever, this would all be worth it. 4 years would be worth it. Wow. I can't.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. We're so proud.
Incredible.
We're cheering you on. Thank you for your beautiful message.
Yes, thank you so much.
If you need a little bit of help in your job search and you've heard about Interview Academy and you want to know more, head to www.interviewboss.com.au/coaching. It's like interview coaching on demand, but 100 times better.
It's so good. You get to cover everything. Watch it as many times as you want. You've got access forever. Incredible. Also, we don't do the W's anymore. www.
Okay, it was 3. Anyway, if you have a sticky situation that you would like us to shed some light on, please kindly follow us on Instagram, slide into our DMs with your conundrum. And I have been checking lately. Each DM I'm like, are you a new follower? Because you can't be sliding in and asking without following us. That's the transaction. That's how this works.
You don't have to look at our stuff all the time. Just follow and then just leave it there in your followers list.
And also, we don't really even post because we're so busy. So, we're not going to clog your feed. And also, you could mute us if you really wanted to, but just follow us, okay? We're trying to grow and help more people. So just help us out.
People think we're small and we are, but we're not that small. But our Instagram following is embarrassing.
No, we're top dogs. We've had 1.6 million global downloads, but we need our Instagram to reflect that. So shed some love. But yes, so I think we actually got a question about this, about short-term contracts, whether you should take them, whether it's better to go for something long-term. So we thought that we'd do a whole deep dive on short-term contracts. So Sarah, what do we need to know?
Well, we've got a bit of background info before we get into should you or shouldn't you. I think it's important to clarify some stuff. Some of this might sound really simple. And if you know all of this, I'm sorry, you can fast forward. But I have these conversations about this confusion stuff with colleagues in HR. So it's not super straightforward. People continue to get confused about all of this kind of stuff. So let's just clarify upfront the difference between your work hours and your contract length. So there's 2 different categories to define what kind of employment you have. One of them is how many hours you work per week or per fortnight or whatever. So you can be full-time or you can be part-time. In most countries, it's maybe 38 hours a week or 40 hours a week is full-time, and anything less than that is part-time. You maybe work 3 days a week, something like that. But that also has nothing to do with whether you're permanent or on a contract. they're two separate things. Like you can be full-time permanent, you can be full-time on a contract. You can be part-time permanent, you can be part-time on a contract. Does that make sense?
The first part is just mere hours. The second part is how long you're locked down at the company, ongoing or for a set amount of time.
I would have people say things like, oh, are you like, how long are you looking to be there or something like that? And they'd be like, oh, full time. And I'm like, oh, you mean permanent?
Yeah, it is confusing.
They think that full time means permanent. It doesn't, because you could be working 38 hours a week just for 3 months and that would be full time contract, right? Like it's confusing. Casual sits in both categories. So casual is ad hoc in terms of the hours per week, but it's also ad hoc in terms of the length of time that you work there. So casual is kind of both. You'd be casual.
And a further disclaimer, everything that we're going to talk about in this episode is about being an employee on a short-term contract. So if you're working under your own business as a contractor, freelancer, that's totally different. This is when you're an employee on the books.
So this is the other confusion that I get. Some people talk about being on a contract as being a contractor, and like your company will use whatever words they're going to use. But we're specifically talking about you are an employee. You have an employment contract with someone. You don't have your own business. In Australia, we would call that like maybe a sole trader. You have your own ABN, you have your own company number, you're a freelancer, something like that. We're not talking about that. So that's the other big part of confusion that I get people talking about, like, oh, they're a contractor. And what they mean is that they're on a fixed term contract. And I'm like, that's not a contractor. A contractor has their own business.
Okay, you've said contractor too many times.
I know I'm confusing everyone,
yes.
But we're talking about employees. Next section.
So what are the different types of contracts?
Well, you could be working through an agency where the agency is actually your employer. Have you seen of these types of arrangements? Kind of like, it's probably like a recruitment agency or a staffing agency, kind of like a temp. And you would be employed by that recruitment company. That's the one that's on your pay slip, but you get placed at one of their client locations.
That sounds strange.
I love that. It's not really. It happens all the time. It's really, really common. But that could be the arrangement. You might be employed by that company, but you just happen to sit at the government department of whatever. And so, yes, you work there, but technically your employer is Hayes or I can't think of another recruitment agency off the top of my head.
That's fine. Great.
Or, well, it still could be a short-term contract. You're still an employee and a short-term contract. It's just that you're employed by the agency and you're placed in the company. You could be placed through an agency. So still there's an agency involved, but you get employed by that company directly. They introduce you, they set up the interview. You're just working with a recruitment agent, same way you would for a permanent role, but they hand you over, but it is still a fixed-term contract, like a short-term contract of some kind. You do sometimes find this when they're a little bit longer, maybe if they're 6 months or 9 months or 12 months or something, that might be more likely. If they're shorter, they tend to be where the agency is actually your employer, because otherwise you would have to be set up, paid, fill out all your paperwork, and then you leave 6 weeks later. It's like it's easier for the agency to employ you. You could be just direct with the company, just in a normal scenario, no agency involved. You could be employed on a fixed term. So that just means for a fixed period of time. So like 6 months, 9 months, up to this day is when you're employed to. Or it could be for a fixed task. Hey, you're here to do XYZ project.
Until you get this done.
Yeah, or I saw some stuff about you're employed for the ski season. And like, depending on when that ends, you're going to be employed for the rest of the ski season. Like maybe we'll get snow in September, maybe we don't. Like you could have that kind of an arrangement.
Just depends on that fresh dump. I always get the ick when my snow friends are like, yeah, massive dump at Perisher over the weekend. I'm like, what are you saying?
Ew.
Ski people are so weird. No.
A big poo on the mountain.
It could be parental leave cover too. Like you could be covering someone who's taken parental leave. So would that normally be a set in time? Like 12 months, we know that?
Yep. Normally the person who's going on parental leave would have to specify how long they're going to be away for. And so sometimes that might be, hey, I'm going to be off work for 12 months, but they have the option to extend that parental leave. And so you probably have the same options to extend in your contract. Does that kind of make sense? Like the reason they have to give notice of coming back to work early or extending their leave is so that the company can then give the person who's covering them notice a lot of times.
Interview Academy might be the perfect thing you're looking for. Interview Academy is a course Sarah has been working on after delivering hundreds of interview coaching sessions and getting incredible results.
But unfortunately, I'm only one gal living in an Aussie time zone who works a day job, and all of that mean I can't help everyone one-on-one, which drove me crazy.
So for over a year, Sarah's been working on turning all of those amazing lessons into an on-demand, step-by-step interview prep course. We hold your hand through the entire thing,
and you can do it at home in your own time and get instant access right now. Check it out at interviewboss.com.au/interview-academy. The link is in the show notes.
Yep. So some changes, we're talking specifically in Australia here, so keep that in mind. But changes in employment law for fixed-term contracts actually came into effect from December 2023. Tell us the changes.
Yep. So there's a few little changes, and I want to mention this stuff just in case something like this applies where you are, but also like we've got to be loyal to our, Aussie roots, and this is a real genuine change. So fixed term contracts can't be any longer than 2 years anymore, including extensions and renewals. There used to be a lot of people who were just on like a rolling 12-month contract, and they'd be like, oh, they'll get another 12, they'll get another 12, they'll get another 12. And it's like, you're not permanent. So whenever you go to apply for like a loan or like something like that, you haven't got permanency and you haven't got all the normal protections, except that you kind of have been working there for like 6 years now.
Like the saying, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it should be treated like a duck.
Yes. So they should be offering you permanency at that point. It can only be extended once. That's now also the change. And again, there are a couple of exceptions depending on certain circumstances, but you need to check out the Fair Work website if you want to see what those exceptions are. Like, for example, if you have a mat leave, a parental leave kind of situation where the person does extend more than once, well, then you have to extend the contract. Like, that's not the company exploiting you. That's just the genuine situation. But yeah, no longer than 2 years, can only be extended once, and they can't just have it end and you just don't work for one day and then they just offer you a new fixed term contract. Like, they can't be doing back-to-back contracts. That's the whole kind of thing of this rolling kind of arrangement. So the other little part of this is because all those things changed, it's now an employer's obligation to provide people that they're giving a short-term contract to. It's called the Fixed Term Contract Information Statement. And you might recognise, the Fair Work information statement. It's like this little slip of paper from Fair Work that you get when you start a new job. Well, now if you're on a fixed term or a short-term contract, you have to be given this one as well as the regular one. You can grab a copy from the Fair Work website if you would like to read it. But it's basically making sure that people know all of these entitlements and all these rules because it's all changed. And if people don't know that they can't be extended more than 2 years, then they might not say anything and then the company gets away with it. So they're obligated to tell you about all of this and then make sure that they enforce it as well. So go and check what rules apply in your country because maybe you don't have everything exactly like this, but there might be, restrictions on, hey, I can request to be converted to permanent if I've been there X amount of time.
Now, should you be open to short-term contracts? This is the age-old question. Here are some things to consider. The big one is obviously a lack of long-term security. You kind of know that the end date is imminent, it's looming. This can be a bit anxiety-inducing. There's also the risk of early contract termination. So why is this more risky than if you're an employee?
Well, it just can be the way that your contract is written. It can say, hey, Emma, we're offering you a job from this day to this day and it's 12 months, but we can terminate at any time for any reason by giving you 4 weeks notice. So make sure you read your contract carefully if you're going onto a short-term contract because basically that just kind of means that they can go, well, we did say it was going to be 12, but it's been 6 and we just don't need you anymore, so see you later.
Or like if we go back to the snow ski season, what if the snow just ain't fallen and they're like, you know what, ski season is cut short and there's nothing we can do, you're out of here.
If I was their HR person, I would say that you should never have guaranteed the best case scenario. You should have guaranteed the worst case scenario and then given the option for extension or renegotiation for the rest.
That doesn't mean that's what happens.
Yes, but they could just say, hey, there's not enough people here. Nobody wants to go to the snow this year. 4 weeks notice, here you go, or 1 week's notice or whatever it is.
See you later.
Yeah, so they might have the opportunity to terminate early. So make sure you read your contract. The other thing that you need to look out for is sometimes you don't get access to all of the same job-related benefits that permanent members of the team get access to. So I've worked for an international company, like a international global company, and they had like a different kind of category that people on short-term contracts fell into where they didn't get access to bonuses. Like they just didn't participate in the bonus program, which kind of makes sense, I guess, if they're not there for the whole year and, you know, they don't get their goals and whatever. There might be certain other things that you're not entitled to as well.
You're also limited to no progression within the organisation. So whereas if you were a permanent employee, you might come in and go, oh, I can see that I could stay a year, go for that internal promotion, cross over here, you can see growth. If you're just the contract, there's none of that. You're just hired for the contract. That's what you're going to do. When it's done, see you later.
Pretty unlikely that you'd be promoted whilst you were on a short-term stint. Absolutely. But with all the negative stuff out of the way, let's get on to the positives. What do you reckon?
Well, more diverse experiences. You're coming into contact with way more employers and situations in a couple of years. This is such a good one because we get messages all the time from people who are like, I was in the same job 17 years, 11 years, 9 years, so I had never gone for interviews. You could potentially become an interview superstar because you're less frightened of them because you do them often, and you also have way more examples to choose from a range of companies and scenarios. So that can be a real ammunition in your career.
It can be really scary coming into a new job because often when you've been in a company for like 16 years in that example, or like even just like 10 years, 7 years, whatever, you've started at a certain position and probably you've had some progression during that time. And sometimes it can be a lot easier to be promoted when you were already doing the job below it. It's a different kind of beast when you're coming in at that higher level freshly and you don't know anything about the company, but you're expected to be at that level. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like, I don't think people are going to struggle. It's just a bit of an adjustment. But it can be handy to do that a couple of times just to be like, hey, how does this work when I don't know every single thing about the way that things work here? And I suddenly have to learn all of that as well as a new job, as well as operate at this level. Suddenly, maybe I'm a manager, but I don't know all the ins and outs of how to do the job below me. You're really testing different skills. And I think that can be really beneficial. So if you've been somewhere a little while, I've actually recommended this to people before. Consider doing a short-term contract. It can be a bit of a palate cleanser, I kind of think of it of.
Nice factory reset.
Yeah, there might be some kind of lingering feelings you have about your old company, or you might have a bit of a stigma when you're applying for jobs you've been somewhere a bit long. It can be handy to be like, hey, I'm keeping my skills fresh. I've had 2 short contracts and then now I'm ready for something permanent again. You've proven what you like and what you don't like. You've tested out some environments and then you can find your real thing to settle into.
You also might get a higher pay rate. That's nice.
Yeah. Occasionally this happens because you've got to attract someone to come and do the short-term contract, right? Like not everyone is going to be interested in this. Some people just, no way, I just only want permanent. And so often you have to pay a higher pay rate in order to get someone interested than what you would otherwise.
What about work-life balance? How do you get more as someone on a short-term contract?
Well, imagine you were just like, I'm going to take a 6-month contract and then I'm going to travel and then I'm going to take another one and then I'm going to travel and then I'm going to, like, you could just set up whatever you wanted to do with that. Like, you're not having to apply for leave or whatever. You just only accept contracts that work around whatever you're trying to do.
Your big life plans. That's true.
Yeah. You're like, I don't work school holidays. Like, I take contracts, I don't know, whatever you want to do.
You also have the possibility to be made permanent at the end of the contract. So it could be a way in. You could blow them away and then they're like, hey, let's make this happen.
I think a lot of people do this where they're like, I don't really want a short-term contract, but I really want this job. And so I'm going to sacrifice by accepting this job to see if they'll maybe make me permanent. It happens a lot. It happens a lot. And I think if your only reason for accepting the short term is because of the possibility of permanency, I would be asking about that through the interview process. Hey, I know this was a XYZ contract role. Is there a reason that it's short term? Is there a possibility of permanency? What does that look like? They're not going to be able to guarantee. Obviously not, because otherwise why would they be doing a short term contract in the first place if they could guarantee permanency? But it happens a lot that people get made permanent because you come in, they like you, you know how to do stuff. You're going to be the first person they think of to make that role permanent.
I like that. That's a good hack. It also can be a good way to get exposure to something that will help you land your job that's your goal in the end. So maybe it's the stepping stone to get closer where you need to be. Hey, I'll do this for 6 months, then I've got fresh, closer experience to what I want to be doing in the end.
I think companies as well are a little bit more open to the background and the types of candidates they're looking for a short-term contract than what they are for permanent, I find. This might not always be true. It might not be true for every industry, but I think that there's something about the fact that you're just looking at a smaller pool of people who are going to be available and interested in a short-term contract, because you typically need them quickly, because otherwise, the contract's going to be over by the time you hire someone. And so if you need them quickly, then you have to take what you can get. And so you can compromise on stuff. So that, for you guys listening, might mean that they can say, hey, we wanted someone with XYZ experience. You don't have that, but you've got half the skills we need. Great. Well, we'll put you in here for this short-term thing. Now you've got exposure to that industry that you needed, and you can use that to either go permanent or go somewhere else.
And here's some things to consider if you do take one. You might find yourself approaching things differently because it feels temporary. Oh, well, I'm only here for another 4 weeks, so XYZ. So if your goal is to be permanent, try and avoid that, because I feel like this could impact motivation, morale.
Yes. I took a parental leave cover contract for 12 months, and I was really surprised at how much I thought of things differently, because the plan from the beginning is that that person returns to their job and you don't have a job anymore. Like, that's the plan, is like, hey, there's someone coming back. And so I didn't get too kind of emotionally attached to the position, because I was like, well, this person's coming back. Like, I kind of felt like I was caretaking their job for them. So there's certain things that it's like, oh, well, I would change this if this was my job permanently, but because it's their job, I'll just leave it the way that they used to do it. And it's kind of weird. Like, I probably shouldn't have done that, because that person didn't end up coming back and they offered me permanency. And then it was like, oh, well, I've spent 12 months thinking that this wasn't really my thing. And like, oh, well, I won't be here next year. And I think it's hard, particularly if it's shorter, but if it's 6 months or longer, try and settle in, I reckon.
Yeah, I endorse that. And start looking for certainty a few months out from the end of your contract. Obviously, it's coming, be prepared, start interviewing, start having a look. And I guess there's certainty in that sense for when you're interviewing, because you can be upfront, hey, my end date is this. Whereas if you're just an employee that's looking to leave in general, it's hard to say when you're available to start. It all is dependent. So that's kind of good.
Yep. You know exactly when you're available. You can even, like, if you're working for an agency or you've had, like, your placement is anything to do with an agency, speak to your agency person. They will be thinking about this for you as well, but you want to be calling them up being like, hey, my contract's due to finish in August. What's happening in September? The end of the year can be really tough. I don't know if you have much control over this, but I would try and avoid having your contract finish in November or December or something like that, because it's going to be tough. But the other thing is, when we're saying start looking for certainty, it's applying for jobs, but it's also speaking to your boss. If you're looking for permanency, if they're going to extend you, if you're going to whatever, you need to put it on their radar. I have seen this happen so many times, where somebody gets their contract officially extended the day that their contract runs out, or like the week that it runs out. And props to them, because a lot of the people that I've dealt with have been really patient and they've just like waited. But can you imagine that uncertainty? Like, your contract's going to run out. And if they're promising you, no, we're going to get you to stay, we're going to extend. Well, put your money where your mouth is. Like, write it down. Send me another contract. Send me an update. Like, get that shit in writing. And your boss is never going to care about this as much as you are, because to them it's like an administrative thing.
Yeah, to you it's your future.
That's exactly right. And if something goes wrong and something changes, that's going to be the first thing that gets pulled. So get it in writing, insist.
You can also put in brackets contract on your resume if you like, if you're uploading it, because is that sort of so other people know, hang on, we could still poach her, she still could be available soon, it's just a contract job?
Yeah, I guess. But how would they see your resume?
I mean on LinkedIn.
Oh, on LinkedIn. Right. Well, you can put it on your resume. I mean, so that they can see, oh, well, why were you only there 6 months? Oh, it was a 6-month contract. Like, you can get in front of that and be proactive on your resume about that by putting in brackets contract, if you like, and kind of specifying like, hey, that's why I was there. That's why I finished when I did. It was just a contract job from the beginning. It can be helpful just to address that kind of like short stint thing that people might be thinking. And that's it. What do you reckon? Would you take a short-term contract?
I think so. I'm into it.
I think it would depend on the circumstances, but I literally have. I took a 12-month contract. It was the right kind of timing for me, the right movement, the right situation. And there's something kind of nice about being like, I don't have to stay. Like,
yeah,
I get to have another new job next year. Like, that's kind of nice.
To me, it would kind of ease my anxiety, being like, okay, well, it's only a year. It's something I do want to try, so I get to dip my toe in. And if it sucks, I know that I've got an out coming. But if it's great, well, then I've had an awesome year.
Yeah. Your parents might freak out on you. I think mum and dad mentioned that a few times. Aren't you on a contract? Aren't you on a contract? What's happening next year? What's happening
Just
next year?
say, okay, boomer, settle down.
That's right. Well, good luck out there with contracts. Thanks so much for listening to Interview Boss. If you like hearing the sound of our Aussie accents, hit follow on Apple or Spotify, or better yet, tell every single one of your friends about this amazing podcast that landed you your dream job. That's how we hit the charts, and we can help even more people get more opportunities and awards, all sorts of things. For more advice, inspiration, and occasionally a post from us, but also lots of great responses to your DMs, check us out on Instagram at InterviewBoss.
We've been your job search besties and helped you in some way. There's a cool way you can support the show. Shout us a virtual coffee.
We get a huge kick out of reading all of your success stories. Head to buymeacoffee.com/interviewboss and shout us a cuppa.
If you keep us caffeinated, we can keep the content coming.